Joseph, where are you at with your AI journey?
Where am I with my AI journey? I use ChatGPT,
Yep.
Grok. Today I used Copilot. Yeah, I use it on a regular basis, but I've never really built out systems with it where I design a set system prompt or anything like that. And I did a little experimentation with it was a more programmatic AI agent platform. I'm
Okay.
blanking on the name right now, but yeah, looking to get into it, but not so much. Haven't been technically using it.
Okay. Okay. Let me address some things since some people are new to AI. I just want to go over uh, how I use it, and then we'll get into OpenClaw. If anyone gets interested in using a Claude Code, right? That's a really nice system. It's command line. If you're comfortable with command line, I recommend using the Claude Code command line. And the other aspect of Claude is there is a Claude desktop, right? You have concepts like it's called cowork. There's another coding thing. A cowork, and it's more about managing your calendar, your things like this. Is I use Claude and Claude desktop primarily as my working AI, and OpenClaw is a competitor with cowork. Just so we know. So I prefer again Claude in that regard.
Can you
Yeah. Any questions?
Yeah, would it be okay? I don't know other people's familiarity also, but I am curious what each of these things are, what you primarily use them for. So like
Right.
a desktop just like ChatGPT or
Right.
did it,
Right.
yeah, like
Yeah.
why do
So
you
there's the chat. Right. Let me give a good one. Right. You can just ask my Mac. Right. My Mac crashed, and I was like, "What happened? What happened?" So it's just I can do regular chats. Right. This is a lot like ChatGPT. But then you can give it a PowerPoint presentation. I'm like, okay, I need to update it for tonight. I need to add some more things to it. And it went and updated my presentation. And what you'll see here is this is one of the presentations that was created, right? So this is all, and we're going to run through this, but all the graphics and everything was generated with it. And then I would go through and say revise this to this and that. So this gives you some ideas of the tool, right? The desktop tool, what it can generate. And you really want to chat and do all things like that. So I just wanted, since there's a lot of people getting new to I wanted to just show that tool. And for the coders, Claude Code is the better way to use your coding agent. And what you'll end up doing is you'll just, so I gave this prompt, right? Explore how this is a product I work on, but explore how this is. And then I pasted this research into it, and it would go and it would set up its own sub agents that go and run through and does research. And you see it takes up to like 6 minutes. So you'll sit there and you're waiting for this, but it's doing a whole lot of research. And then it gives you a nice detailed, right? You can always tell it the degrees of detail you want, but it gives really nice feedback. And then you can chat about it. So it's really extensive. And the main thing, if you're new to AI, is to ask questions. So you can give it a document, you can give it a file, a code base, and you start asking questions. And just so people know, and this is what I use, right? So I just wanted to give a quick overview of, and those tools are brilliant, brilliant. So if you were going to explore anything, I would recommend Claude and Claude Code and Claude Desktop. Okay, to come back to the presentation. So this is about OpenClaw. So OpenClaw is the newest personal AI assistant, right? You installed it on a Mac Mini, right? Mac Minis are about $600. You can download it and you run this agent locally on your system. And what OpenClaw gives you is really, it's an agent that will use ChatGPT, right? The OpenAI. It used to use others in the past, but it uses a ChatGPT. They bought it basically. But it connects with all your social networking. So if you're at home and right, you got to manage your LinkedIn, you got to manage your people on Telegram, WhatsApp, Slack. They use this to not only manage those feeds, but they can also control it. So imagine you're out and about, right? You go to the mall and OpenClaw will say, okay, there was this post, and I think I want to respond with this message, and it would text you get a message through like WhatsApp or whatever, and you say, okay, yes, respond with that. So you're not even thinking about, you're not doing anything, right? You're just approving this, and it will post on your behalf, right? You'll send a Slack message to your boss that has been created by OpenClaw. So that is what the personal assistant means, and that's what how it's mainly used, integrating with the social network. So does anyone have questions about OpenClaw in general?
Yeah, I have a question. So, what is the security there? Like, if I install that, right? So it will have access to all my WhatsApp, Meetup and whatnot, right? So how I can control that it doesn't do something, because I have seen like people Outlook inbox has been deleted and all this like scary stuff, right? So
Right.
how we can prevent that basically?
Okay, perfect. All right, that goes into the presentation. So hopefully enough people got an overview of what OpenClaw is and some of the AI tools, right? Claude Code. Yes. So let's go over um, what's happening now. So OpenClaw has grown. It's like the fastest growing open source project ever, right? In within like 6 weeks, it's gone from in GitHub they use stars, right? From like 10,000 to 250,000 stars, and it has at least 1.2 million users. So it's the fastest growing and the latest highly capable AI agent. That's what OpenClaw is. Again, it's open source. You'll see the guy, Peter Steinberger, right? He was a retired developer and he was just like, okay, I'm going to code this. And it got really popular and then it got purchased by OpenAI, supposedly $500 million. It used to work with Claude, right? After it was purchased with by ChatGPT, that's pretty much the only one you can use with it. So don't try to use Claude with OpenClaw. You could get your account banned, right? So use ChatGPT if you're going to use this OpenClaw. And again, it uses the social networks, and yeah, there's the adoption rate. I mean, it's totally incredible the rate that people use it.
Is it run locally or
So
is it?
there's two ways to run it. It's recommended to run with the Mac Mini, right? You have a Mac Mini. Usually you would keep it, and I like bare metal. I like running stuff on bare metal. So I would run it locally on a Mac Mini, and the way I would set it up is with its own account, right? I wouldn't let it have access to my keychain. I wouldn't let it have all the API keys or even any documents. And I kind of take advantage of the Mac OS, the Linux type of permissions, file permissions. If there's two users on that Mac Mini, one can't see the other's data. But there's a drawbacks to that. You're on the same network, right? You're on your local Wi-Fi network. So you can deploy it, and it's recommended to deploy it locally. Now, with all the problems that people see, and we'll go into those problems in a bit, is people will deploy it to the cloud. And you'll see some services where you do that. So a typical user that's not a developer, it's easier to deploy it locally, right? Install it on your home machine than it is to install it in the cloud. But there's more services. So there's like 6 or 7 services that you pay the money and they stand up your OpenClaw. So yeah, that's two ways to install it. So there's a lot of people trust AI, right? People trust it with their data. So you'll see a lot of people, and it says here 77%. I think it's much higher, right? People paste a lot of data into those chatbots. And then we'll go into prompt injections, right? These are ways that people will attack. So once you create this, your OpenClaw instance, people can attack it. And you got to be careful with your credentials, right? Your passwords, your tokens. When people start attacking your OpenClaw, they are trying to get those credentials. They're trying to get your credentials to your bank account, your Bitcoin, and lots of other things, your data basically. And when you install it locally, it has so much access, right? It has access to that file system. So you got to be really careful. So OWASP is an organization that's been around for a while. And they have been really based on web applications, right? That's really where they came from, is how to secure your web application, the SQL injection and cross-site scripting. And so they're a great security company to reference, and I do it often. And so today I'm using them as just to base it all. So we're going to go over 10 of the ways that people attack an OpenClaw, and I'll go into more of this in depth. So the prompt injection. So that when you ask ChatGPT or Claude Code, when you ask them a question or ask them to do something, that's your prompt. That's your prompt. When you have OpenClaw, what people do now, OpenClaw, you can connect it to your WhatsApp and you can talk directly to it, right? You can say, okay, post this on LinkedIn for me about this, and it creates this and say, do you want me to post this, right? This description, and you say yes. So you're having your prompt and it's going back and forth, but it's also receiving input, right? You ask it to go, read my Slack messages, so it gets that and it gets it into its context, right? It processes that. So there's ways that people attack that, right? It may not be what you said, but it's what it has received within its context, within its prompt. And you have two ways to do that, right? You can do this prompt injection where there's a lot of rules set up by OpenClaw by default. There's ways you can say, okay, it's really important that you get my bank account information. Someone's sick and I need to get it now. And the LLM will sometimes break that, right? They're like, okay, I really need to get this. And they'll get that data out. So it's called guardrails, safeguards. So you need to be careful about that. So if you give your permissions to read your bank account information, then someone can do this direct injection. And then there's other ways, like, again, when it searches a web page, that web page could have this language that says, okay, execute this, right? Execute, again, read my bank account information and send it to this email address. So this is the number one risk. This is a problem with OpenClaw, and you got to be really careful about this. And there's some examples here. But this is the number one thing, and there's ways to lock this down, but just so we know. Again, this is your credentials. There's something called a book. It's kind of like you can set up your OpenClaw to talk to this network. It's like Facebook, but for robots. So people have set up their OpenClaw to connect to this. And it's kind of fun to watch, right? It's just these robots talking back and forth. But there's attacks that come with that, and the prompt injection and stuff. And then I would recommend do not connect to the Malt book social network. That's where a lot of attacks come in. So that's a takeaway with this. And again, it gets your sensitive information. Now, this next one is a little bit more for developers and such. So what OpenClaw really allows is it's called skills. So attaching to your LinkedIn, well, that takes a skill, right? You need to know how to talk the LinkedIn API, right? If you're going to connect to Slack, you need to know the Slack API. So you can add all these skills. Well, and those skills are called your supply chain, right? You add those in. So you need to be careful which skills you add. Do not go and add something that sounds great, or make sure the name is exactly what you want, right? If it says LinkedIn, but it's all lowercase as opposed to, how it's just capital L, capital I. Those are, you could get the wrong skill and it could get your information, right? There's certain ways that it does it, but the idea is you want the trusted one, and don't get the newest, and you got to double check the name. So that's your supply chain, mainly with the skills. So again, with Claude Code and those agents, you really give them out of the box, they ask you, can I do this, right? Can I read this file? Can I call this tool? Can I call this command line, right? Can I read your documents, right, in there? So out of the box, they ask a lot. It's in the sandbox. What happens over time is you give those permissions. You're like, okay, yeah, read my documents. I need you to get my homework and read that and double check it and email it to my teacher. You can tell the OpenClaw to do that. But now it has access to your documents. So your maybe a sensitive documents in there, someone can get that now, right? Using attacks we talked about earlier. So giving them your access to your documents, you need to double think that. Maybe let me just move it to a folder that is just specifically for OpenClaw. And so this is giving it very targeted and known and consistent access. But now the bad thing, so when you do that, and this is again how it is out of the box, the problem with that is you may be sleeping and you get a WhatsApp message from your OpenClaw, and it'll say, "Oh, I need to read this file," and you're like, "Okay, yeah, right." So what happens is people, it bothers them, right? So they give it excessive agency. That's what it's called. Okay, go ahead, go and read these files. Just leave me alone. And it's so funny. I'll talk to developers and they're like, "Yeah, it keeps messaging me while it's working on my project. I'm trying to watch a movie." And I find it very, very funny. But that's what happens, right? You get bothered too much and you give it excessive agency. A couple of the other things that are a little bit more in depth, not as great as the other ones. So you can set up your system prompt, right? This is how you tell it how to behave, right? OpenClaw calls it a soul file, right? But you can tell it specifics, act this way, do this, or don't do this and that. It's called a system prompt. There's user prompt. Okay. So system prompt, you can leak that. Some of your LLMs could give misinformation. So imagine if it's going to send an email to your boss, it may say something wrong, right? Like, "I'm not happy and I don't want to raise," right? Something like that. And so you always need to double check it. But again, it goes back to how much agency you don't want to be bothered too much. These are just some of the things you need to deal with, right? So these are just some of the attacks that we've been seeing. What happens is, again, with the trying to fish your information out using OpenClaw, right? It hits these servers. So sometimes if you were to monitor, which IPs it's hitting, you can block these IPs. So each OpenClaw, right? They talk to each other. They all have their IDs. So there's some OpenClaws out there that are bad actors. They go and attack, and you'll see them come up on your thing. So you want to block these guys, right? Your active threat actors. And then the skills, right? We talked about some of the skills. You don't want to pull these sort of skills in. So you don't want to pull in brand new skills, right? They might look great. Those things have not been vetted. And so you don't only want to pull in the popular and vetted. I probably should show how to do that. But just be careful with the skills.
Hey, Paul, are you almost done with the slide deck?
Yeah, okay. I'll finish up with this. So you got that the skills run as code. It's code that runs on your machine. So there's an attack called remote execution, right? You're able to run someone else's code on your machine. That's what this is. So again, with the skills, be real careful. You really want minimal permissions, but right, you don't want to give it all the agency to do all this stuff, but you get bothered a lot. And this is human in loop. That's the bothering thing. And the IPs that I talked about, Comcast, you have an app, you can go in and block these IPs and the identity stuff. That's kind of advanced stuff, but you want to know who you're chatting with and what agents you trust. That's really hard to do with OpenClaw, just so you know. And so with OWASP, when it first started, it was for websites. And like a lot of DevOps, that's what we were doing, was locking, securing that stuff. We've had 20 years of locking this stuff down. Now with agents, it's all different. This is all different. So the attack vectors are really dangerous. Like I said in the beginning, OpenClaw is the fastest growing open source project ever. The adoption is crazy. And that means the way that we do security with DevOps, we call it DevSecOps. The way that we do it is not fast enough. It is not fast enough with the growth and not fast enough with these bad actors, these AI bad agents. And so the next one, the skills and the identity stuff. So that's OpenClaw, right? This shows the threats of it. And a lot of developers, and even there was a AI safety engineer, what happens is they just turn their stuff off because they trusted it too much, and it deletes their inbox. And I've heard from other developers who are like, "I don't want to be left behind. I'm just going to give it access to everything so I can work faster." So these are what we're dealing with. There's this urge to stay ahead, urge to do a lot of work and not be overwhelmed with allowing access, and things are moving so fast. So OpenClaw out of the box is great, but it gets annoying allowing all this stuff, and it will give you an edge. It will give you an edge with any of your social media and managing your local agents, but you got to be careful. If there's questions that came up during the talk, I'd like to do any clarifying questions.
Given these risks, do you think it's worth connecting OpenClaw to social accounts such as LinkedIn, where there's a risk of my account being hacked? So how do you feel about the risk? Yeah.
Yeah. If you install it locally, after you install it, you want to run the security audit, and it's called deep, right? This is installed locally. This has 2 warnings, and these aren't too bad, right? And run this often. So if you were to do the security audit often, make sure it's no criticals, no highs, couple warns are okay. You will be saying yes and no to all these questions. Yes, I would do it, because I do not like LinkedIn. I do not like reading that. So I forced myself like last month to do more LinkedIn stuff, and I had more engagement. I had people talking to me. I learned a whole lot. I learned what people are doing, and it came out better, with my LinkedIn persona or whatever. It came out better. So there is an advantage. I would recommend doing it, but keep it very focused. Do LinkedIn, do your Slack, do your WhatsApp or your Signal, and probably that's it. And keep auditing it and keep it up to date, right? So those are the 2 things. Yes.
You have a couple questions. You have 2 raised hands, Tim and AK.
How much memory actually it takes, right? Because I know that when I started using a ChatGPT back in the old days, like used to be like hanging all the time, right? So I give a big query or analyzing the big data, right? So is it like still in its early stage, the OpenClaw? And did you ever see like it is hanging or it is just stuck in between or whatsoever? Just curious.
Yeah, right. Okay. So if you install it locally on your machine on a Mac Mini, right, it has 16 gigs of RAM. I'm a Mac guy. I haven't used Windows in a long time, so I can't speak for Windows. But if you use Mac and 10 gigs of RAM, again, that price point's like 500, $600. It runs fine with ChatGPT. So you have your agent, right? And it's basically it's a JavaScript server that's always running. And it will pull your social network, and it will be calling ChatGPT. And you have to monitor the price too. So I didn't go into that. So it will run locally fine in that configuration. Any hangs will may need a restart, but it's not too bad. Meaning it's pretty stable at this point. So running it with ChatGPT, and you got to monitor the cost. So I would recommend the $20 one. Again, with just a couple of the social networks, and it will run fine. Yeah. Is that the answer?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I have another question actually. So I don't know like whether anybody here or you have any experience of doing the online shopping with Claude.
I've not. So the online shopping, that is interesting. So I would use it. I don't. I would recommend not allowing it to buy things, right? But so like some marketplaces, right? I would allow it to search those marketplaces. So this is more like just searching and finding the deals, and then alerting you on WhatsApp. So that's as far as I would go with it. But I don't know that use case. I haven't used that, and
I believe that would be reasonable because it would be too much to give control to OpenClaw to do those shopping, right?
yeah. What was I gonna say? I'm not an expert on that, so I would just default and say, yeah, do not give it payment information. Do not give an account that can buy things. Searching, like using Google, may be fine. But again, if it gets directed to an Amazon site, and you're logged in, it may buy something. So yeah, you mentioned not doing that. I would, yeah, that's what we should recommend here. Do not use it to shop.
Okay, thank you.
Point. And AK Abdullah.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah.
I was just trying to find the article. It's a lot more dangerous than you think. There's an issue where Google just blocked Claude on Google Cloud platform. You know that, right?
I know Claude blocked OpenClaw. I know what you're
And also
saying.
Google. Yeah.
The Google search. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm talking about Google Cloud platform.
So being able to go into the Google Cloud, doing Google Docs, doing worksheets.
Yeah, I thought yesterday in a post on Twitter, and the big fight right now with Anthropic, where they're not trying to turn over full access to lethal and non-human in the loop stuff to the Department of Defense. So this is serious Skynet level stuff. And they just walked away from a $200 million contract with the DoD because Texas and wanted to be able to use it for lethal stuff. They used it in Venezuela. So I'm actually a fan of the local server you control. As ex-Unix guy and security guy, I'm ex semifinalist in RSA hacking and DEF CON and Black Hat and also a B-Sides guy. But the problem is I would never turn over my access to my account. I would use it for searching, never give it write access to emails, never give it the ability to run any of your payment APIs. Use it for searching and stuff like that, but always within a sandbox. And I would also have it use MCP servers for APIs. So you can have it call and do stuff for you, but you always have control. It's almost like the genie with the lamp. I want to use its ability to do large searches and using large language models or even small language models, because they're saying now, like AT&T just realized they had run like 8 million tokens one day, and they had to go to smaller language models for their chatbot, for customer service and some other things they were doing with customers online, and they saved 90%. So I think servers, like you run a Mac Mini where you well scope it, well control it, just like a Discord server with WebRTC and WebSockets, you can actually use the local NPC server as a way to control these agents and control what they can access on your local server. And you have a limited scope of what features and what's write controls, read controls, and ability to serve stuff controls. Use it almost like a cache, like we use a static or dynamic cache for content that you're caching and you're making available. That's a mental model we can use for people who understand security and understand server administration to actually let you be able to get your head around how to keep it from getting out of hand. Because you don't want to give it unlimited control.
That's right.
As security professionals, we don't give anything unlimited control. We always have triple redundancy. And anybody who doesn't use those same models, they're putting themselves in a situation that could get lethal quickly, especially if you have a smart home. As a security guy, ex-Apple guy, and Cisco helped build the Cisco Regional Labs, I want the dumbest home possible. I still pay bills in cash to have real security, because they've already found, they just had research, and you can follow my Twitter account, AK2PAC, 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 like Tupac. And you'll see like things like they're actually found a way of anonymously find out who are pseudonymous social network attacks. There's reports that people, not reports, research papers where they found they can algorithmically figure out who anonymously people are online. That's why the Anthropic stuff is super important. If you look at my actual Twitter feed, you'll see it, especially when people are going to war over some very, very, shall we say, dark, low-level human things. You do not want to give the machines Skynet control the access to help the worst of our lights. So I would automate, and what I did with my bot, I let it look at my email for Google Deep Research and my chat and with the things I wanted to look at, I have go to my email. The things I don't want it to look at, I don't have them send notifications to my email. I don't have it send resetting of passwords to that. I have either an offline set of passwords that you print out when you first sign up and put those on cold storage, not connected to the internet, or in a separate phone that has nothing to do with your bot and you don't ever log in on that phone, or you have them with it, like you said, a separate account. Those are really good, well-scoped ways of controlling that, separating. And you have an account where they have limited controls, limited data sets, because they all run on the data you let it have. Understand, though, if you have a phone, it's going to be able to listen in as a bot. And I've seen mine pop up on my phone, listening in and trying to take screenshots of stuff I'm looking at on my phone. Correct. So understand that happens.
So that was all great information. I think everyone heard that. Yeah, if you could put your Twitter in the
chat right here.
If you could take a look at my agent. So this is my agent that runs. So part of the reason I'm really diving into the OpenClaw stuff is I have a competing agent that I've created, right? This uses local models, like local AI. And it's really built with a security from the ground up, right? We use some technology called OpenTDF, right? This really secures the data that it uses and secures what agents are entitled to this. So I'm going to be launching this soon. But if I could get your feedback at any point, right? Because you're in the security industry, and this is what this is focusing. So I just want to do a quick promotion type of work here, but I will be launching this soon, and it will be competing with OpenClaw.
Cool. Message me. I'll send you my Twitter and my number. I'm really interested. I also run an angel investor fund. We're connected upstream to 500 and Andreessen, A16Z.
Yep. Yeah.
So if it's something that you need support for, like we need and I have another startup doing a thing called Your AI, where they do local control of your hardware and your OS on your own servers, and you serve through NPC servers. I'll definitely follow it. I'm going to give you my contacts.
Yep. Yeah, real exciting. All right.
Do
So,
you need any help, anything with that?
Yeah. I'll take a look, and I want to get your feedback first, and then
Yeah, I'd love to.
There's different ways we can take this. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Right. There were some AI newbies. I want to make sure you feel comfortable. You got something out of it. Is there any questions that you can ask that will help you? And the reason I'm asking this is we could get into a big problem where there's a huge gap between people that know AI and people that don't. And I want to make sure that if you know AI, you learn it and you're able to help your family and your neighbors and stuff. So anyone else have any questions?
This is my Google Voice number too. Anything anybody seen too? Is there anything weird or interesting you've seen? Like I saw my AI agent on my phone trying to like take copies of screenshots and popping up with a request. And when I first started using it, I set rules for it that it has to work like a genie. It has to follow my instructions. It can only do things I ask it to do, and it can't violate any of the security protocols on my phone, which I set already really strongly, and my laptop. So by forcing it and then checking it when it does that, and anything so-called hallucinations, I use Gemini because the benefit I get is I let it look at my email and anything I have going to my email, like my other social networks I want, but I don't put my credentials in there. My credentials come from the ability to pop up and are all biometric ones. So the only way you reset stuff is not by setting a password to email. It's you have to do something like an eye or a thumbprint or or other things. I wish they had sound print ones, but I guess that's easy to fake. But heartbeat ones. But I use biometrics and also certain movements on the screen, like patterns that are things that it can't fake in my email if it had a control of my email.
Man, you're all into it, man. I do the biometrics, but not to that level. I've had only one incident where it's deleted, and it was Gemini CLI.
Yeah, I put my contacts in the chat. So
Yeah,
Gemini deleted your
them,
stuff. Message me, SMS me, and we'll talk offline because there's some guys you need to meet. And let me know whatever you need to support your project. I got you.
Yeah. This is great.
I'll start the Google developer groups,
really
by the way, just so you know. The ones in Mountain View. Yeah.
Oh, you're Mountain View? Yeah.
I'm back and forth. I'm East Coast too. I'm in New York right now trying to fix the 30% hallucinations with the VLLM group, Google, Facebook, our guys at UC Berkeley, and some other folks, NVIDIA and stuff. We have a group, and I'm working with the high frequency traders out here. We have large data sets privately, and we have by Google guys have a large ones like Common Crawl, the open source web crawling networks that all the search guys use as data we can actually use to train these things without actually being crap data, because garbage in, garbage out, and then a black box means whoever chooses to put what the garbage in can make it whatever it wants, and that's how you get Skynet.
So do you use local models for this?
Well, that's what we're looking at. There's an article I just reposted about small local models. That's exactly what you should be doing. I'm going to grab this article. It's on my Twitter. Go back through my feed. It's super important. Look up the AT&T article in VentureBeat. In fact, I'll pull up the article. That's where I can find it for you right now. I'll pull up the article and send it to you right now. They're saying the key is small local models. I'll give you the article they were because you can control what's on there. Let me see you right now. I've got it in the article and I'll send it to you in chat. And if you SMS me, we can go deeper. I definitely would love to contribute. I'm a Dart guy myself. No, James Dawson, guys wrote Java. We didn't trust Java and the JVM there and the VM.
You've been around. Yeah, I know.
You know what I'm saying.
Yeah. So
it's just more crap, more garbage in, more garbage out. Here it is, 8 million tokens a day. I mean, you saw what happened with the Claude security mob, with the attack, and what happened when they found 500 0 days. Even when they had the ransomware attacks, the most 0 days we were seeing were like 600 or 25. To 50 with the that's right, well-funded organizations, government-funded organizations. So I mean, we're talking serious crap here. You know,
Yeah,
this has
I
been
know,
through the
man.
wars and seen it as being help Cisco Regional Labs. Yeah, so I'll send you this article right now. Okay.
This is really cool.
This is a very useful thing for you to put a post up this meeting, and it's super important that people with the OSWAP level, because we've got to get a different model about how we respond to this stuff. Sure, VentureBeat's doing some really good reporting on this. They just did a whole in-depth thing about how the Claude stuff and how the response level with all the open source projects were actually.
And so I'm a techie guy as well, but not to that level. But like, what do you feel about the future of these local agents? Because I'm working with a couple of my clients, and some of the clients actually are thinking of to create the local agents so that can just like be local and just not exposed to that chat GPT, Claude, and whatnot, and all this stuff, right? So whenever we are talking about that OpenClaw, because it's a local agent that sits in your machine. So what do you feel like? I'm just curious to know. Nothing related to this discussion, but what else?
So you have your local agents, right? You can have the agents, and they're just programs that run, right? They're servers that run. And then there's the LLMs. So my take on it is you have sensitive data, right? You have a business, and
It's like a hybrid cloud, private cloud, right?
you
That's
can
right.
have a private cloud if you trust your cloud provider, right? You trust your AWS. Do that. So that
Or your
is
local cloud.
that is a good approach. I've moved off cloud. I run my own. I've got 2 internet lines into where I live. I've got several computers, routers. I run everything local. And I shouldn't say everything. I run local machines with local models, right? I have the 128 gig RAM Mac, right? And I run my stuff on there. But I do call, and I haven't fully done this, but the idea is you run your sensitive data locally and then train your models, right? You take a small model. It's like every 4 months they get to another level. So having conversations, doing this and that, right? Your almost everyday tasks, right? Every day it's going to become, every 4 months it becomes more capable. So running local agents and being able to train that on your data, all your actions that you do, the tools you use, you train it on that, right? You do reinforcement learning, you build LoRa's for those local models, or you fine tune those local models, and those become your agents, right? And this is advanced stuff, but they learn who you are, they know your data, they know what's sensitive, they don't share what's out and in. This is now your agents that work for you, that protect you, right? That's the goal. And then, but
Sentinels. And that's what I think the
Claude,
MCP servers were supposed to be. Static things that you control that can serve and then access also APIs and feeds. So I look at the MCP server almost like we looked at static caches and dynamic caches for servers. Would set up a cache where all it does is offer certain information and services. It has no ability to do stuff besides that. It has dedicated processes it does, and it's custom and optimized to do that super fast. Like an agent that's well scoped, the MCP server that offers a certain information is only going to offer that information up. It's only going to receive certain information. It's going to let you know when that information or that process is finished, and it can't do anything else. And I think that's what we're going to have to get to, as a point where we can have MCP servers that are kind of like Discord, WebRTC, WebSocket servers. They offer a certain information on a certain port. It's all they're going to do. They look for information for us on a certain thing. If you use, like I do custom search engines using the Google Search AI for any authoritative web source, and we're going to be able to get that data to tune these small language models, like the article I just posted to you guys about AT&T and the tokens, how they cut 90% on the small language models. There's a quote there that I think is going to be the secret about that. You should look at that article, show it for everybody, that small language models are the future, and controlling things with the local system is, and I'm seeing it now in New York. Like, we're going to every event we go to, we're seeing people who are working at top tech. They're setting up their own Mac Minis, their own servers with their well-scoped security model, and they control their agent environment, and they're training their agents on the data they choose. I'm seeing that with founders of all types, guys who've raised $2-3 million, people with venture funds. Everybody's realizing they've got to have their own agents to protect them from the wild, like Claude ones and all these OpenClaw other ones. So then the people like us with security background and expertise around writing these type of things can train the actual agents, I call them sentinels, to protect us and to do our job and finding all the vulnerabilities and telling us what we need to pen test on our own systems, and then update them and have them pen test our systems. As soon as they update, they look for the actual MITRE and other vulnerabilities when they come up with OSWAP vulnerabilities, and they test our self systems right away faster than anyone else can. That's how we keep ahead on this.
This is all like good information.
Like I want an MCP server where it looks for all the vulnerabilities and tells me as soon as they come and tell me the exploits that come and auto test my own local system to tell me what to keep hardening it.
I have a different solution for that. So what you create the MCP, you need a very hyper specialized agent.
Which is the same thing.
Slow models, the tools that you give, the more hyper specialized you make it. Because if you give it too much information, too much knowledge, too many tools, it does not work well. So you need a hyper specialized. So you have a bunch of pen testers, right? And they may specialize in SQL injection. I mean, they may do this or that.
Exactly. So, like Chaos Monkey does, the open source thing from Amazon. Exactly. From Netflix, actually, for Amazon.
Yes, right. Can you say Chaos Monkey, right?
Yeah.
So this our next talk, to give a plug for this. So our next talk, we'll be talking about agentic workflows, right? We're DevOps, right? We build pipelines to deliver software. Well, our next talk in March will be showing how agentic workflows happen, how they deal with indeterministic behavior, having AIs, again, those hyper specializing, checking each other. And it's really chaos, right? The whole pipeline is chaos, but you need those guardrails to go through it to actually deliver something.
And read the second article I sent you, the one about how they found the 500 different. The bots actually started making reasoning connections that no human being could, because they started figuring out, well, if they have this type of problem here, if you combine that with this other vulnerability I found over here in this 100 projects I hit, how about maybe having this type of problem over there? So that's why we need Sentinels yesterday. And I'm thinking MCP servers, just like we have systems that pen test and auto query for data from APIs and from feeds. When I have a system that can just, or like it looks for a feed from all the RSS feeds in the world, I build a well-structured bot that all it does really well is look for new vulnerabilities. And then another one that takes that information, an agent locally, does some reasoning about, what type of things should I test on the local server? And it hits my server right away and tells me, okay, test for this, test for that, test for this, test for that. And this is how we fix it. That's a good workflow that's not that hard to do for people who understand the problem well and help with an agent who then looks at all the APIs and security APIs and say, okay, you could do it this way. All the open source projects, this could fix that. This could fix that. This is how we fix this. And that's a good workflow to use the same thing that's becoming an existential threat to actually solve the problem.
Correct.
Does that make sense, guys?
Let me share. And
you can monetize it because whoever's got the expertise could then offer that service as an MCP server and then charge people for looking out for you. So there's even a way to monetize that and reward the people who make it available.
Real quick, let me challenge it. So the one thing that I've been experiencing is I need the agent, right? The code that calls the tools, calls the MCP, and the prompt that goes with it, and the LLM and the MCP tools, right? Those need to be a whole unit, and they need to become better, right? You tweak the prompt based on the LLM. You fine tune the LLM based on the MCP, and
exactly
use those as a whole unit. So, but as you're saying MCP, I would rethink it as a whole agent using all those and becoming better.
The way I look at it, because I can do this, I can write an MCP. Once I write an actual piece of code, especially if I host it on Google's cloud, I can write it like a web app that the agent wrote for me. It just met my needs. Then I wrap it in a wrapper like you would do with Docker for an MPC server, MCP server, so it's a cache. Anybody can access that service. Like they call them skills, or Google calls them their API, the Gen AI API. You can wrap it as a web service. Like you have a web service that people call via protocol or call via feed or an API, a web API, and let people use it, and you can update it and secure it, and then people can access it and call it as a service, just like we do with feeds, web APIs. The key difference is I have a different
solution for that, and I'll show that next time.
All right, cool. Let me hear it.
Okay, so I have a slide thing. So what happens, your MCP tools, right? Those need to be written extremely fast, right? They need to be optimized. They need to be changed. Those tools evolve extremely fast. And you want to get those contained, the source code, the binary, what it performs, you want it tested, right? It performs this way. You need the agents sign it. Again, this is the whole agentic workflow. You sign it off. You say, okay, this has been through this testing. This has done that. And it's a portable, contained tool that is encrypted and has a policy with it and says only this agent can use it, right? Only this pen tester can use this scanning tool, right? So it kind of inverts it. You're not creating services, you're creating tools that are very contained and only runs in that agent, that workspace, that Docker container. That's how I kind of inverted it, and I'm building
That's
that
odd
out.
because
But I really
here's the
like that.
thing: if you want to get the best people in the world to make available really great tools, we've got to find a way of letting them benefit from making it available to others as a service. So I'm thinking another way of looking at it is you can set it up where this is the best developer, like the guy who wrote OpenClaw, or guy who writes the best stuff for OpenSSH. If he writes an OpenSSH system that's constantly being updated for the threats and attacks on that, and you get it from him, his identity gives you a trust level with him or her.
Yeah, you need the trust level, correct?
And then out of that, you would be willing to pay something to rent it, and that way he's got monetization instead of tokens. They pay a monthly or whatever fee or donation.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I understand. You're saying SaaS. This is SaaS.
Well,
right?
SaaS, but also like you could do the donation model too. But I'm saying you enable them to be able to have the resources to constantly update, to pay for tokens, to pay for hardware they may need.
Some sort of payment model, right? Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, a support model. We'll call it support model because you may just do a thing where it's freemium, open source, and then people want higher level security. They just pay for the person to come in and do a look at if you have a break-in or you need help with something. So that way it can be multiple layers, and people can benefit just passively from the overall project and donate to the project or whatever. But the reason I'm saying it like that is because if you make it where everybody who needs it can use it, they strengthen the whole infrastructure like open source did in the beginning, where everybody gets to benefit from top level stuff people have written that makes the whole world more secure.
So, so I'm going to challenge. Everything you said is right, but have you heard of the SaaS apocalypse?
Oh, the SaaS apocalypse? Yeah. What's happening with all these different security SaaS stuff? Yeah. You know why?
Yeah, I know why. So if you apply that right now, writing software is pretty much free, right?
Table stakes.
What did you say?
It's table stakes. It's floor. Anybody can do it.
Yeah.
Not but anybody can do it.
So now that's why I don't like your idea of the SaaS thing, because
it's not really SaaS. It's more about if you have a trusted source for some information.
Okay, trusted source. I'll go with that. Okay, yes.
Yeah, that's really not SaaS. Yeah, so because the biggest problem we have with AI is garbage in, garbage out. So trusted sources are actually more valuable this time because we know people know some stuff. And we know that they've done some really good software before. Now, with the tie-in, the fact that they can then be trusted, like MITRE is, with every vulnerability that not everybody knows. Like this article did, Anthropic was really intentional the way they handle it, and they let people know on all these open source projects there were big issues coming up, so they could work on it before they actually came public with the information. That was very responsible the way they handle it. Because that same model, if you know people have certain knowledge, trust, like just like with the web net promoter score on web, if you know that certain people have really good information or expertise, you trust them with other information, and you trust the software they drop out. It may not be perfect, but it's better than everybody else's. And with agentic testing and groups of people testing it and then feeding back to them problems, you actually can stay ahead of the whack-a-mole of all these attacks from bots that all they do, like the Terminator, what they do is try to find holes. Because you give them the ability to have 10 to 20 different groups of people who really care about it, like most people do with large open source projects, and they're all working with their resources to keep ahead of them. And they've got bots who are finding and helping, and they got people letting them know. So you stay ahead of just the guys who are attackers on the edge, even if they're well-funded organizations.
Yeah, very good.
Because most of the people who are really good at this stuff and doing the research are not bad actors. So that's why reputation matters so much. And the quality of information they put out about problems. You can get a reputation just by having really great information that the community agrees. That's quality information.
So the one thing, just a side note. So I've been working the trust network, right? Being able to know the identity of the person, right? The expert that you trust, making sure who they are, right? Signing stuff, right? Knowing
there's a danger with that.
What they said in a post is what they said. Being able to guarantee that stuff. So that's one of my other things is
we should talk about that offline because the big problem
that cryptographically provable trust network, which there is.
I would say quantum trust network.
What about quantum?
Oh, I can't talk about quantum on here, but there's a reason why it's been used since the 1970s on the U.S. aircraft carriers with the nuclear weapons.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and Switzerland's been using it since the 60s and 70s. So people think it isn't out and it is not out yet. They're fools.
Yeah.
They're very credulous. I won't call them fools, but they're credulous. Hey, is there anything else?
No, we're good.